The journey from natural talent and ability to accomplishment and success is fraught with many important decisions. In the first instance, where does the artist begin this journey? And, as importantly, how does one find the right path toward instruction and education? Artists, when starting out, will find that the all-important beginning is to learn to see. Natural talent is just the start, but more significantly is the early guidance that nurtured artists for centuries and built upon one precept at a time over another, over many generations. In our study today, we look at the work of Charles Courtney Curran, an artist who knew what his chosen path should be, and knew that with the right training he could realize his dreams. His would be one that does not rest on history painting, narratives, or even simply recording nature, but his unique talent was to paint a poem, or better said, that he made poetry in paint. It is the main characteristic we see in his works. His journey began in Kentucky, where he was born, and due to his father's business decisions ultimately settled in Sandusky, Ohio, and that is where he had very fond early memories growing up. His father was a superintendent of schools and also an amateur painter, very fortunate for a young aspiring artist, no doubt. By 1880, when Curran was just 19, he began study in Cincinnati at the School of Design, which lasted until he furthered his art training in New York City with artist Walter Satterlee in 1883, then began his work at learning from casts for 2 years. Besides additional study at the Art Students' League, he continued to show at the National Academy exhibitions. His early work gained him a certain success, having been awarded the Academy's top award for painting with the Julius Hallgarten Prize, and was elected an Associate of the Academy, as well as a member of the Society of American Artists. By 1888, newly married to Grace W. Wickham, they ventured to France and sought to further his studies at Academie Julian under the prestigious painters Jean-Joseph Benjamin Constant, Henri-Lucien Doucet, and Jules-Joseph Lefebvre. But seeing the work of Dagnan Bouveret was the light that flooded his soul. It was a time when the naturalist movement was in full swing, and despite the Impressionists' fledgling works and growing influence, he was not moved to work in that direction. Theirs was a voice that would begin and end with themselves. But the practice of working more closely with nature was the basic foundation all art must be initiated upon. After 2.5 years abroad, Curran returned to New York, where he painted portraits, landscapes, and genre scenes. He was further awarded honours at the Academy with the Thomas B. Clark Prize of 1893 and a second Julius Hallgarten Prize in 1895. Curran made additional trips abroad to Switzerland and Paris and was selected by the U.S. Art Commission to oversee the 1900 exhibition Universelle. His devotion to the Academy and teaching art would continue throughout his life from 1917 to 1942. Curran was very active in his dedication to helping young artists with his writing as well. He instructed on how to analyze painting with reviews of fellow artists and their pictures. These editorials would be in the magazine, Palette, and Bench. His insights, along with other authors, would be a great source of learning, both in techniques and tools of the trade for painting. The exercises for students are even today very instructive. One such aid is the use of 2 small notebooks to carry at all times, to be able to record those ever-precious moments of cloud formations, or when travelling, watching workers, or some unusual tree pattern at sunset, to always be curious and keep the notes handy for studio work. It has been well documented that such notes were a handy help when inspiration runs dry at times, or simply to remember. Bouguereau often said that he had a constant group of drawings and sketches for future pictures that he could resort to when needed, and with many other artists, including Edgar Degas. Curran was a very capable draftsman, and did not shy away from unusual and often difficult light sources to paint. He was prolific, and tried his hand at all types of compositions, demonstrated by his figure paintings, out of doors, that are very well rendered with the deep tones of nature, and careful observations in modelling form while not getting too carried away with minutiae of details. The key factor to always strive for the big look, as the saying goes. His work calls to mind the admiration he has for Dagnan Bouveret's work in the naturalist vein. He balances his work with the realism of the scene before him, with the poetic side of his individual and natural gift. Curran also seems to be drawn to the romantic and intimate atmosphere around the subjects in his pictures. The young girls are posed thoughtfully, and all is complemented by the general mood described by the leaves well designed and flowing, the natural arabesque of the figure he employs gracefully. In contrast, Curran was able to use brightly lit and very sunlit drenched arrangements, seemingly with no problem. He seems to be able to shift to the dramatic and often very difficult backlighting challenges that arise with figure paintings. His drawing is careful in design, and he gets right to the heart of the matter. There is no struggling in technique, but everything is in keeping. It's always a treat to see pictures that radiate a sure hand, particularly when dealing with sun-dappling and extreme values. Curran has some insight for the young painter, as he admonishes. To paint successfully, the drawing must be sure, free, and easy, the values just. The sunlight on the white flowers, for example, must be allowed to dominate, to be much the lightest thing in the picture. The colour, how deceiving it is! At first glance, it would seem to require the full power of the palette. But wait, look well. In all the rich pink of the flowers, there will be but one or two little pinkish spots. The rest will all be a trifle less pink. All the brilliant colours in nature are qualified and made tender by greys. Countless delicate shades of grey are everywhere. A picture with the greys left out would look like an exploding paint-box. The studious painter goes through life to the end of his days learning about greys. Whether the spirit of the picture in hand is rich and sensuous in colour, or quiet and sombre, still the essence of its charm is in the quality of the greys. Each part of the picture influences the rest of it so much that frequently a colour cannot be judged until it is separated from the rest. Often there are times when an artist looks for a retreat, both to paint and to relax, and the Currans would find that in a charming hamlet in a new artists' colony. After the Currans visited the summer arts colony of Cragsmoor, the couple and their family would summer at Cragsmoor for the next 40 years, and Curran would create some of his best-known paintings in the vicinity. They had willing models among family and friends, usually girls dressed in white or soft colours, posed in breathtaking vistas overlooking the valleys below. Many artists began to seek out the rustic and natural beauty of upstate New York. The landscape painter, George Innes, Jr., and his wife purchased Chatola House in 1900 and began to develop the largest estate on the mountain. Another landscapist, Edward Gay, built his home in 1905. Dellenbaugh invited the American impressionist, Charles Courtney Curran, and his wife Grace in 1904, and their home was built in 1910. In the same year, Curran's associate, Helen Turner, another impressionist, built her cottage, and the illustrator, Arthur Fuss Keller, and his wife settled into their new house. The wonderful views were critical elements of many Cragsmoor artists' homes, and a place of freedom. Featured in our opening segment is the painting titled Paris Lotus Lilies of 1890. This iconic lively canvas depicts Grace and her cousin seated in a rowboat surrounded by a bounty of lilies, which was accepted into the salon and received a medal. In 2014, the Frick Museum mounted the first major look at Curran's works since his passing. Curran was never affiliated with an art dealer or gallery. Instead, he managed the sale of his paintings himself. He went on to exhibit 11 canvases at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, became active in many art organizations and clubs, along with writing on art, as we have already made mention. Art colonies have proven to play a significant role as the mature artist begins to work out individual aspects of his craft. But there is the other side of the coin, when dependence may be stifling, when the creative and experimental need comes into play. An insightful view is noteworthy in the International Studio magazine, illustrating a balance of factors helpful for the painter. The artist who is one of a crowd in his student days is apt to remain one of a crowd for the rest of his life. Many of the greatest artists whom the world has known have been either rebels against school restrictions or solitary workers who have fought the battle of their training alone and unassisted. Isolation has been to them both a safeguard and an encouragement. It has saved them from falling under the domination of a clique or a fashion, and it has spurred them to attack the problems of art in their own way. So true are the safeguards that each artist must wrestle with after leaving the comfort of the atelier and growing into and maturing into his natural gifts that must blossom at some point thereafter. Curran's work neither lays an excessive emphasis on drawing nor on elaborate or superficially refined colouring, not the tedium of small broken daubs of paint. Though a brush-stroke that is clean and well controlled, it is, as a rule, full of sunlight and atmosphere. He arranges the proper mass in the proper place, with a grasp of the subtle gradations of values, the relative strength of light and dark at every part of the canvas. Especially when out of doors, painting modulations of blue-grey or mellow light. He composes his lines with a quiet sureness that lacks visible formula. His ability to use large masses of space to great effect, the geometry of art that he understands very well. Overlooking vistas and the grandness of distant spaces for the canvas to fill up must be intelligently worked out, every inch a design to control and give power to. As a result, his thoughts are and must be on the control of spaces and lines. Subjects arouse no movement of curiosity or nostalgia, no historical tale to tell, no desire to look before or after, but to delve into a surface of marvellous workmanship in pigment and structure. One critic has stated, "He allures the eye and the heart and the brain, not so much by a suggestion of a tale, as by a composition of graceful forms. It is Mr. Curran's art that holds the spectator's gaze." Curran is an artist through and through, and is as thorough an American, says one writer. Moreover, one may say of him that he is a painter for everyone, not merely a colourist, or an illustrator, or a picture-maker, but a painter in the true sense of the word artist, a painter who presents visions that make more clear to one the nobility of life. Curran is a painter of simple scenes. His subjects are not the results of a plot-hatching mind. They are placid in conception, taken from everyday life. Free from the storms of passion, they are like oases in the parched desert. One turns to them gratefully and sympathetically. They are mind-resters, though nevertheless they give us much for contemplation. Painting, like poetry, has its many moods. Yet serene or ruffled, art is still art, poetry is still a poem. Some painters are concerned mainly with an appeal to the aesthetic sense, with beauty for beauty's sake. Others regard their work as the fulfilment of a mission, whose canvases may be regarded as sermons, fables, or morals, and yet again there are artists who paint mainly to entertain, the storytellers. Curran presents his canvases so attractively that the pleasure derived from the balance, harmony, and colour contrast makes other intent seem almost unnecessary, in so far as enjoyment is concerned. Curran is the painter who is especially skilful in composition, and will so dispose his forms as to appeal to the structural sense so strongly that one will find a want of colour daubs as unnoticeable. All art does not attain to the sublime completeness found in Leonardo da Vinci's perfection, yet we could not do without those lesser masters, innovative and fresh, big if not great, excellent if not supreme, all of whom show us how varied are art's messages, how endless her endeavours, and how useful her labours. With art, to understand it we must understand all of it. We may like what we choose to. In a preface by Émile Boutroux, a noted member of the Institute of France, to Paul Gautier's illuminating book, Meaning of Art, said, "Invention, in truth, arises in the sphere of the idea, the emotion, the intuition, which springs up mysteriously from the soul itself." "A poet," said Plato, "is a winged being." Every complete and true thought must embody itself in an image, a form, a symbol. So we look to the art of Charles Courtney Curran as one who went his own way and utilized his natural and peculiar gifts to express a poem in paint, and he did it well. Finally, with that, thank you to our subscribers, and please remember to leave a like as it helps a lot, and we look forward to sharing more artists of the highest ranks in the future. So, until next time, it's bye for now.